Good afternoon. On behalf of Oakland Community College, welcome to Let's Talk PTSD. My name is Jeff Arnold, and I am the Military and Veteran Services Coordinator for Oakland Community College. My email address is on your screen at this time, and I want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded for future use and reference. And for those of you that may not know, June is National PTSD Awareness Month. Over the last few years, we've approached this subject in the month of June. 2 years ago, we were honored with our Congress member, Gary Peters, and we had a representative last year from Oakland Community Health Network. And this year, we're very happy and blessed to have CNS Healthcare, here, and I will be introducing them shortly. And I want all of our guests today to realize this is not just a veteran issue. This is everyone. Now, let's talk about what today's action plan is all about. We will have our guest speakers from CNS Healthcare. They have a wonderful presentation ready for you. When they are done with their presentation, I will be introducing you to Chris Evans, one of our counselors here at OCC, and she wants to make sure that our OCC students know what kind of help OCC can provide for them. We will have a question and answer session at the end of our presentation today, and we do ask you to please put your questions into the Q&A section. And we will also be providing resources for you. And the biggest takeaway we want you to have today is to know help is available. So without any further ado, let me introduce CNS Healthcare, the anti-stigma team.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is quite an honor for us to be here today with you, and we're very excited to be talking about PTSD with Oakland Community College. My name is Melchiah Newman. I'm the team supervisor, and pre-COVID, we were going city to city, state to state, talking to faith-based institutions, schools, colleges, and other community partners about our work. And I am the team supervisor. And
my name is Cheryl LaFleur, and I'm a community advocate educator and a certified peer support specialist. In today's session, we're going to play a little game called Myths versus Facts. We'll talk about what stigma is and the intersectionality or layers of stigma, what PTSD and CPTSD is, people first language. We're not going to share our video today. We'll talk about what you can do, what you should know as a student veteran. We'll talk about resilience, famous people with PTSD, a PTSD story. We'll talk a little bit about self-care and then a little tribute to our heroes. About CNS Healthcare. CNS Healthcare is a nonprofit certified behavioral healthcare clinic, or CCBHC. We have 9 clinics and 2 clubhouses in southeastern Michigan. We employ approximately 400 employees and deliver services to more than 10,000 people annually.
our program started in 2005. It was a 1-year grant-funded program through SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, from Washington, D.C., as well as the Oakland Community Health Network. Oakland County was so excited with the work that we did that first year that they extended our grant for another 2 years. Then they made us a permanent part of the services that CNS Healthcare provides. We're all people with living experience with a mental health condition. It's the cornerstone of the program. And we are a nationally recognized, award-winning program, but we're sure that you'll let us know if we are deserving of the accolades once we get to the end of our program. We are funded in part by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Oakland Community Health Network.
So now we're going to play a game called Myth versus Facts. We're going to read a statement to you, and you're going to decide whether it's a myth or a fact. If you would like to put your answers in the chat, feel free to do that. If you don't know the answers, sit tight and we'll give them to you. Are you ready? People with a mental illness are more violent than people who don't have a mental illness. How many think this is a myth? And how many think this is a fact? Getting a lot of myths. Facts, mostly myths. This is a myth. The fact about this one is that only 4% of violence is attributed to serious mental illness. And the key to that is those 4% were not in treatment. Using marijuana does not cause emotional problems. How many think this is a myth? And how many think this is a fact? Got mostly a mix here. So this is a myth. You're more likely to notice signs of depression or anxiety or increased symptoms in other mental health diagnoses, especially if it's used in large quantity.
43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. Is this a true statement or a false statement? I can't see the chat. So
I'm
you can let me
seeing
know.
fact, fact, true, fact, fact probably higher, fact, true.
Now, if I didn't know better, I think you guys have played this game with us before. This is a fact. 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress, and 75 to 90% of all doctor's office visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. Next question. Strong people can't deal with trauma on their own. They need help. Is this true or is this a false statement?
True, fact, fact, true, fact, true, fact.
Boy, you guys are doing just great. This is true. PTSD and other trauma reactions have nothing to do with mental strength, character, or background. This myth ties into the stigma that surrounds many mental health conditions and is rooted in the old ways of thinking before we understood better how the brain works.
Next one. PTSD always happens right after the traumatic event. How many think this is a myth and how many think it's a fact? I have no false myth, myth. Yeah, I think they did play this before. This is a myth. PTSD symptoms can develop at any time after traumatic event. They can start soon after or take as long as months or years to show up.
Trauma reactions don't last forever and are curable. Is this a fact or is this a myth?
Facts, true.
What are they saying?
Fact, true, myth, kind of trick question. It can be both.
It's true. New treatments for trauma are being developed almost every day. Society is beginning to understand what trauma means, and we're learning how to support each other through stress. As difficult as it may have been for a person that's dealing with trauma, they can still look forward to a life worth living. Now, we want to define for you the word stigma. And just like I said earlier, we talked to all kinds of audiences, and we were at a major university one year talking to students, and we asked the question, what is stigma? And somebody says, isn't that part of a flower? And yes, it is part of a flower, but that's not the stigma we're talking about today. This is one of the best definitions that we found for stigma out of the 17 years we've been doing the program. Stigma is the perception that a certain attribute makes a person unacceptably different from others, thus leading to prejudice and discrimination against them. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was born, I didn't have any choices what gender I was going to be, how tall I was going to be. I took all of the points that came from my gene pool. So why people think it's okay to treat people poorly for conditions that they didn't ask for and really don't want? That's why CNS is so committed to our program that they make sure we have everything we need, and we will talk to a stick or a brick if it stands still long enough to listen, to encourage you all to join us in this fight to stomp out stigma.
The intersectionality of stigma. So if you look at this slide, you can see there are other ways a person can experience stigma. It could be their gender, their sexuality, their religion. If you take a person and they are of a certain religion, of a certain culture and gender, and then they also have a diagnosis of let's say bipolar on top of that, we call that layers of stigma. When somebody has that many layers of stigma that they're facing, how much recovery do you think a person's going to experience? Not very much.
Chapter 1, what is PTSD and CPTSD? PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event or trauma, either experiencing it personally or witnessing it in someone else. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is a condition where you experience some of the same symptoms of PTSD along with some additional symptoms, such as difficulty controlling your emotions, feeling angry or distrustful to the world, feeling as if you're completely different from other people. CPTSD is caused by ongoing trauma, which lasts for months or years, while PTSD may be caused by a single traumatic event.
So there are many symptoms, as you can see, that are affiliated with PTSD and complex PTSD. Any of these a person can experience. There may be times where they're not having anything at all, and then they could be triggered, and they may have any of these. They could have two at once, they could have one, they can have multiple ones. Negative changes in, I'll read just a couple. Hopelessness about the future, negative changes in thinking and mood, memory problems, trouble sleeping, intrusive memories. It could be any of these.
Civilian PTSD versus military PTSD. How does it vary? Civilian PTSD, also known as non-combat post-traumatic stress disorder, is no different from the PTSD that we hear most related to military combat. The reality is it's the same disease with the same symptoms, and it's the same debilitating condition. Chapter 2, what can you do for yourself if you're struggling? Just a few tips that we like to share with you. Exercise regularly and practice relaxation techniques to help reduce anxiety and improve your concentration. Reach out to other veterans for social support. Social support. Say that 3 times fast. Seek social activities that don't revolve around alcohol or drug use. Make connections with your doctor, a mental health professional, or a spiritual or religious advisor for additional support.
What can you do for someone who you know is struggling with PTSD? Healthy, positive relationships are the best thing for someone with PTSD. Learn what makes them feel safe. and support them in their decision-making process. Offer a lot of verbal reassurance, especially when they're being triggered. For example, I am here for you, or we're going to get through this. Communicate with them when they're having symptoms and affirm their strengths and growth process as much as possible. What you do not say or do. Don't trivialize a person's response to a trauma trigger by saying things like, what's wrong with you, or what happened to you isn't that bad. And don't forget to take care of your own needs.
What should I know as a student veteran? You may not feel up to the challenge of school, but there are some things that you can do to help make that transition easier to bear. Start with just a few courses initially to help you get into the routine of school. Get to know your professors. Ask them for advice, things that you can do to make it easier for you in the classroom. When studying, use a study partner as much as possible. And when you can, take as many breaks so that you can relax in between. Respectfully decline to talk about things that make you uncomfortable. You have a right to set your own boundaries. Resilience. We couldn't talk about trauma without sharing a little bit about resilience. I used to think that resilience was something that you were either born with or without. But I was really happy to learn through our research that resilience is something that can be developed over time. Resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral demands. One example is trying to make a positive perspective on situations, viewing challenges as learning opportunities, regulating emotions and expressing feelings in appropriate ways, focusing on the things that you can control instead of dwelling on things that you can't change.
We like to talk about people first language as well. How many of you have heard of people first language? Feel free to put an answer in the chat. Never. No. Okay, something they haven't seen about us. So people first language is making a conscious decision that whenever you refer to someone that has a mental health or physical condition, you don't refer to them by that illness. In mental health circles, you often hear people say bipolar, crazy, schizo, or psycho. When you do that, you limit that person to be all the negative traits that you associate with their illness. You never go beyond to find out what the person is really like. What are their dreams, goals, or aspirations? So no matter what a condition a person may have, they're still people first. On this slide, we have a little cartoon example. The guy on the left is saying, so do you prefer differently abled, physically challenged, or gravity impaired? The guy on the right in a wheelchair is saying, what's wrong with Joe? His name is Joe, call him Joe. Famous people with PTSD. We've been using famous people since the start of our program as a stigma buster. It's a great way to show our audience that you can have a mental health or substance use condition and still do great things. Psychologists, researchers, as well as ourselves, believe there is a link between creativity and brain disorders. Individuals with mental health and substance use conditions are set to display a capacity to see the world in a unique and original way, that they literally see things that others cannot. It is believed that where the areas of the brain are less developed, the capacity to expand in other areas increase and allow for enhanced growth and development. I'm going to share with you Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. His PTSD stems from early childhood. He was consistently with his mother, Princess Diana, while being chased by the paparazzi until the day she died. At 12 years old, when she passed, he was unable to process and not allowed to talk about it. From the age of 28 to 32, he started having panic attacks while out in public, paparazzi chasing, camera flashes going off. He was triggered again after meeting Meghan Markle, after which he decided to get therapy, and which is also a good part of the reason why he left the royal family.
I'm going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg, another famous person with PTSD. Whoopi Goldberg witnessed two planes collide in mid-air as a child. As a comedian, actress, and talk show host, she's required to travel frequently and has had to deal with severe panic attacks when boarding planes due to the traumatic event that she witnessed. Goldberg has made it public that she receives therapy for her condition and has found it helpful to help. It helped her to get through it.
Now I'm going to share you my PTSD story. Fear. It's the color of clouds looming before a storm. It happens when your sense of safety and security is taken away from you. It feels like the heartbeat in your stomach when you know something bad is about to happen. It sounds like a child crying in the night, hoping that no one will hear. Fear. Anxiety. It sounds like the ruminating thoughts circling in your mind. It feels like there are no solutions in sight. It looks like the raised hair on the back of a dog. Anxiety is debilitating. Despair. It's the color of a dark night sky without stars. It happens when you are swallowed up into seclusion. It feels like a void that cannot be filled with meaning or purpose. Despair. Hope. Hope is waking up one day and knowing that everything is finally going to be okay. It looks like warm rays of sun glistening through dense clouds. And it sounds like the laughter of young children on a playground. Hope. Recovery. It's the color of tranquil skies when the sun is setting. It happens when the sense of accomplishment is realized after the hard work is done. And it smells like the aroma of lavender meadows. Recovery. I witnessed physical and emotional abuse on a daily basis and was bullied at school. My symptoms of anxiety and PTSD began after the birth of my second child. I was unable to care for my children and my marriage dissolved. I eventually sought help in the community mental health system where my recovery journey began. I finally found my meaning and purpose when I became a peer support specialist at CNS. Working as a peer support specialist helped prepare me for my current role on the anti-stigma team. I've come to understand that the symptoms and triggers of past trauma can show up at any time, and I'm learning to recognize these symptoms as they occur. I use coping skills such as breathing, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness techniques to help keep me present. I have learned as I continue on my recovery journey that life will always have its ups and downs. These experiences have taught me that life will never stop teaching, so I will never stop learning. Thank you. About self-care. It's really important to talk about self-care, and not just for people that have a diagnosis. It's important for anybody to practice self-care. And this is one of my favorite definitions of self-care. It's any activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. And on this slide, we have different types of self-care divided into mind, body, and soul. You can do any of these for your mind: setting boundaries, journaling your thoughts, your body, hydration, good sleep, your soul, volunteer work, time with family and friends. All of these are important.
We have talked about several different ways to unplug and relax. We want to share a few ways with you to relax and unwind that you may not have considered. Connect with your inner child. Keep an open mind. It's okay to feel a little uncertain about the idea of an inner child, but you don't have to look at this child as a separate person or personality. Instead, consider them a representation of your past experiences. For most people, the past contains a mix of positive and negative events. These circumstances help to form your character and guide your choices and goals as you grow older and eventually reach adulthood.
The benefits of sex, cuddling, and hugging. Your brain releases more oxytocin, the feel-good hormone. That helps ease stress, helps sleep, promotes bonding, increases self-esteem, reduces blood pressure, increases immunity, and bonus, it burns calories.
As we find our way through this pandemic era, we have all been affected by it in some way, whether we contracted COVID-19 or not. We have had to learn different ways to do our work, different ways to show love to people who matter to us, take a stand for what we believe is right and just, and still retain our humanity. I commend you for being willing to take part in what can be some very difficult conversations when you're talking about mental wellness. You are courageous, and for this we thank you. I can't imagine what it's been like trying to pursue a new career, going through those transitions, coming from military to civilian life, and then possibly dealing with PTSD on top of that. For that, we consider you unsung heroes. And I just want to sing a little bit of the Mariah Carey Hero song as a tribute to you. There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of who you are. There's an answer if you reach inside your soul, and the sorrow that you've known will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when it feels like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you.
Like us on Facebook. We are CNS Healthcare's anti-stigma program, where we share inspirational and educational posts. And for more information about CNS Healthcare, you can call us at 1-800-615-0411 or visit our website, www.cnshealthcare.org, or info@cnshealthcare.org is our email. And for more information about us, the Anti-Stigma Program, call us at 248-871-1482 or email us at antistigma@cnshealthcare.org. And we also have some additional mental health resources available to you. Oakland Community Health Networks resources, Detroit Wayne and Integrated Health Network Helpline, and Macomb County Community Mental Health Crisis Center Helpline.
And we also included our sources for our information. And that with that, we conclude our program for this afternoon. You've been a wonderful audience, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Melchiah and Cheryl. And doggone it, I knew she told me she was gonna be singing that, but she still brought me to tears. So thank you very much for today's presentation. I want to bring our next speaker on, but there we go. At this time, I want to introduce Chris Evans. She's one of our OCC counselors, part of our faculty here at OCC. She's located at the Auburn Hills campus, and she wants to share with our students what's available here at OCC. But before I do that, you see a picture of Melvin Chapman. He will be joining us during the Q&A also. He is one of our psychology and social science instructors, and he's located there at the Orchard Ridge campus. And both of their information, their emails are there, so I encourage you to take a snapshot of that real quick. And let me give the floor over to Chris.
Hi, I'm glad that everyone could be here with us today. I thought I would share a statistic. According to research, 8% of all college students is actively experiencing PTSD in their lives. There's approximately 33% of students who are experiencing anxiety. Sometimes those go hand in hand. So it's important for you to know that there are resources available for you to take advantage of. So if you think you might be experiencing PTSD, you can certainly make an appointment. You can speak with a counselor on a confidential basis, and we can have an initial conversation. And if it seems like that you need some further assessment, we can refer you to outside agencies that we work with. CNS is one of them. We can send you to some other services for additional evaluation. But more importantly, we can help support you as you go through your educational experience. One of the first places that we would want to bring into the conversation to assist is our Access office. The Access office is our office for students with disabilities. And what we find is, sometimes if you're experiencing PTSD, you might need some different accommodations in the classroom. And I'm hoping that Mel might be able to kind of talk a little bit about what he's seen in his classrooms, because he is an excellent champion for our students. But some people with PTSD may experience difficulties being in a large classroom with a lot of people. It may be difficult to take exams in crowded rooms. Certain noises or stimulus might be triggering for the PTSD. So you might find that you can qualify for a remote environment to take your exams. You might get additional support. You might get additional rest breaks in the classroom. You might get a modified schedule. And in some cases, even just being able to sit by the door or to sit in a certain seat in the classroom can help with those PTSD symptoms. So there are definitely resources that we can use to help you. And maybe Mel can come off camera and talk a little bit. He's an excellent resource. And so I turn the floor over to him to maybe share some of his experience with helping students.
Thank you, and good afternoon. One of the real pluses about being in the classroom is the environment leads people to speak out. When dealing with PTSD or struggling with a lot of other things, the thought is, why me? Out of all of the people in the world, why is this happening to me and just me, only me? So in the environment where people are encouraged to speak up and speak out, they're enlightened by something that should be rather obvious. It's not just you. You saw the statistics. This was a wonderful presentation, concise. They put it out there. It's close to half of the people And that's often reported because it's been diagnosed or treatment has been sought. A large percentage of the other half of the people, they're just suffering in silence. So the key is not being alone and trying to handle everything on your own, because if you don't or you can't, you're not strong. That's not how it works. There's strength in numbers, there's strength in support. I noticed something in the chat when the posting about kind of the me time, the looking after your own mental, emotional, and physical health. Someone posted something that's common. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 small children. There just isn't time for me. And know that you are not the only person who feels that way. You're not alone. It just seems like there's not enough hours in the day, but it's so important. And one of the things I share in class is the old story about going on an airplane trip. And some people don't even know that the flight attendants give you all this information that you probably need to know because they're so excited about their trip. They're looking out the window, they're reading the magazines, and they give the information about this is how you can exit, and these are where the lights are, and these are where the exits are. And in the event that there's a loss in cabin pressure, and they do it so matter-of-factly. And I always say they should change that script. They should stop for a second and then say, hey, if all of a sudden you can't breathe, because that's what a loss in cabin pressure means. And people are like, wait a minute, I can't breathe. I got to watch. I got to pay attention. What are they saying here? And if you pay attention during that portion, you will hear them say, if there's a loss in cabin pressure, you can't breathe, don't panic. A mask will drop out of the compartment over your head, and you are to do something with that. You are to put that mask on your face so you can breathe. And people think, well, what if I'm traveling with a baby or a toddler? I have to put the mask on my baby. And they say, no, you have to put that mask on yourself, because if you do not, you will pass out from lack of oxygen, and then your baby or toddler is left defenseless. So it is very important to schedule, as busy as you are, activities that will free you up for an hour or two here and there. Because if you go too long without doing anything for yourself, you will run out of energy. And if you're no longer able to take care of yourself, how well are you able to take care of those who are really depending on you and counting on you? That is not selfish. It's actually selfless. The better you take care of yourself, your own mental health, emotional health, physical health, the better able you are to take care of those who depend upon you. So looking after yourself is really not optional. It's mandatory. And so I encourage you to seek support so you will have some time to do that. Do something that you want to do. Life can't be all work and drudgery. There has to be some fun in it. And I think that's what maybe they were talking about when they say, find that inner child. It's just so important. Putting you first is great because it allows you to be in better condition to take care of others. And again, reach out. Do not suffer in silence. Don't think reaching out is a sign of weakness or a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. It's the first step on the road to getting where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And I think it's important also to mention or underscore some of the points made earlier by our presenters, in that, PTSD isn't something that simply can be brought on by a violent act that maybe you've experienced or witnessed. A lot of our healthcare workers are walking around with PTSD as a result of all of the trauma that they saw in hospitals, especially during our COVID times with so many patients that were so ill. So being in that environment can create PTSD. There are so many things that can bring on experiences with PTSD, and it's you never know what that event might be, but your reaction and your experience with it is what you have control over reacting to. And Cheryl mentioned setting boundaries. For a stay-at-home mom, that might be one of the best things that you can practice doing, is setting boundaries, and that may be just simply saying no when the school is asking you, hey, can you make cupcakes for this event? Or, hey, can you come into the classroom for this event? And you have so much going on. Sometimes saying no is the self-care that you need to have, and you have to be able to focus in and do that time for yourself. So those boundaries, I would underscore that. And in the comments, Alicia said, it's important to remember, those boundaries. That's not selfish. It's taking care of yourself, which is very, very important. So I appreciate your time. I know we wanted to leave some time for questions and answers, so I'll turn the floor back over to Jeff.
This has been a great 1 hour and I am so appreciative of all our participants. Ken's getting that up there for us. It is time for question and answer. And I know that our panelists have been kind of fielding the questions as they've come through in the chat, and I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A. Now is your time. If you've got a question, please put it up there. We've got a lot of experts here ready to help.
I do also want to share that we do have an emergency mental health crisis line, 988. It's been in existence for almost a year. We're almost at our 1 year anniversary. So if any number you can remember easily, the 988 number is one that I would encourage you to remember. And that number is, you're anonymous, and they will connect you to resources, and they will help you. They're 24/7 every day of the year. So that's an easy one to keep track of, put in your phone, just like 911, 988 is for any kind of mental health crisis.
Panel, I'm seeing a statement here in the chat that says there is definitely a stigma that if a mom asks for help, it's a sign of weakness or it makes you a bad mom. Now, I'm no professional on this, but I just think, no, that's just a feeling. But please, if I can ask one of you to please expound on that.
I did want to respond to that question, and it's true. There will be people that will view you as weak because you can't handle it all by yourself. But we live in a different society. We used to be closer knit back in the day. Parents didn't live far from children, and you had opportunities for breaks. But more and more people are living isolated lives. They move away from family. They don't have any support around them. So it's vitally important that you seek out some help with your children. Maybe there's other mothers, stay-at-home moms that you can link up with so that you can share time share with the kids. One take all the kids for one day and then the other one take them all for another day just to get an hour or two in. Something as simple as taking a hot bath uninterrupted, anything that you can do that's going to build you up is vitally important. It's vitally important, as we said, because you cannot help others if you yourself are depleted. And then there may be social opportunities through church or clubs, or just don't give up the idea that you're in this all alone. There's somebody out there that can help you. I'd even suggest calling 211 to see if there's any groups in the area that are working with stay-at-home moms. And then maybe you're the catalyst to start something like that because of your own need. You could seek out other stay-at-home moms, maybe put some flyers up in the neighborhood to let it be known that this is my situation. I'm looking to link in with somebody else. And that will help to alleviate some of that stress and that loneliness that you feel, because children cannot meet adult needs. You need adults to meet adult needs.
We've got a few questions in our Q&A, and I'm going to ask our panel if you could, because the others I don't believe can see those questions. So if I can ask you to please read that question and then please answer it if you want to take that.
I will answer about what about the kids who grew up with a caregiver that had PTSD? Can this make you more hypervigilant of your surroundings? like they were. I would have to say I was pretty hyper vigilant. I'm not perfect, I'm human, but I told myself I was not going to repeat some of the mistakes I seen from my parents. You know, you do the best that you can. But like I said, you're not perfect, you're human.
I see that there's a question about some modalities, ketamine, MDMA. I'm not familiar with those, but I do know that there is a therapy method called EMDR, which there are therapists that are they're taught how to treat people using that mechanism. And it is a modality where actually eye movement is used in the therapeutic process. I know that's been very helpful with trauma. So that can be very helpful. I'm not sure if our panelists know anything more about these other therapy modalities that you've mentioned, but I do know EMDR is used quite a bit.
I have seen those modalities. They are a little bit controversial. You have to have a really good therapist, from what I understand, and they have to really monitor it, but it's not something that I recommend. I think it's a last resort. And like Chris said, EMDR, I've went through a few treatments of EMDR, and it's highly effective. You can find a therapist that is trained in EMDR. It's very effective.
I noticed a question, which is a very valid question, and it has to do with culture. It was posted, okay, how do I ask for help when my culture is you don't ask for help? The mom does everything. And as a suggestion, in a way, try to broaden your contacts, because we have a culture that is changing, that is adapting. There was a time here where the culture was, yes, the mom was expected to do everything, but you can use psychology a little bit, because you can, one, as the children, I don't know what ages they are, but as they begin to get a little bit older, give them responsibilities, have them help, have the girls do everything that children might do, have the males do everything that children might do. And I'm doing it to be a good mom, because if I'm doing everything for my son, what's going to happen is he's going to grow up, he's going to get out in this culture, and he's going to have a hard time finding someone, because they don't do that over here. They want someone who can take care of themselves. And that's why I say have them do everything. The males don't just cut the grass. If they can't cook, if they can't sew on a button, they're going to struggle. You know, they're not going to be able to take care of themselves. And the same for the girls. So you can kind of use that. I need help, but it's a two-way street. By getting their help, I'm helping them. And when I say kind of reach out to maybe organizations or groups of people who aren't directly in your culture, there are other people who will buy into that. And so it's a matter of, you know, broadening your horizons and getting the help you need. But you're also, again, you're helping the others, helping them learn how to reach out, not how to put everything on their own shoulders. That makes life so hard, all drudgery and no enjoyment.
Someone asked a question about what is 211. It's a resource line in the metropolitan Detroit area, and you can call that number to try to find organizations or groups of people that can help you with your particular issue, and it is free. I highly recommend it.
And while it's summertime, there are a lot of activities, free activities for children, places where you can go check it out, see if, hey, you know, I think this would be a good environment for them. I can trust them here. The people here to take care of them for an hour or two. Again, just to give you time to breathe, you know, maybe read a little something, have a conversation with another adult, so that you don't feel like every conversation I have is with, you know, one of my children. So look for opportunities to buy yourself a little time. for you, me time.
Someone asked a question about reaching out to a friend that's showing all the signs of PTSD, but is hiding it and needs help, but does not want to admit that he does. That's probably not what's going on with that individual. When you have a brain disorder, a lot of times you don't recognize that you have a brain disorder. And I'll use, I have bipolar disorder, and I was over 30 years before I got diagnosed for it. And it wasn't until I got into recovery and treatment and started taking the medication after that, I could tell a difference in the way that my thought processes operated. You only have one brain, and the information, when it comes in, if it's not going to the right places, you don't know that. And you don't have anything to compare it to. So being as empathetic as you possibly can, we were going to show a little video on empathy, but we couldn't get it to play. I'm going to make sure that Jeff gets the link so he can send that out to you guys. But empathy, not trying to pass judgment on a person for where they happen to be, but to come alongside them, to try to walk with them. Because if you haven't had that experience, you don't know what it's like, and you don't want to judge a person harshly for an experience that you've never had.
I'm noticing a question, and I know it's two of them together, and it was just, what's your advice on dealing with CPTSD? I know that was mentioned in our presentation earlier.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say that the best advice is encourage yourself, if not force yourself, to reach out and get help. There are relaxation techniques, meditation, mindfulness techniques, but it's nothing like being able to unburden yourself to someone who's not going to judge, not going to criticize, can give you insights on how to deal with it. It can be a struggle, but I think when you can free yourself to reach out for assistance, you'll wish you had done it sooner.
Mhm. Along with that, just dealing with brain disorders in general, not just dealing with PTSD. One of the things that we recommend is that you get a complete physical, head to toe, to make sure that there's nothing physically wrong with you. Because some drug interactions and some other ailments can mimic some of the symptoms of a mental health condition. And you want to make sure that you get a good diagnosis for what's really going on with you. So if you had a complete physical that can't find anything physically wrong, then I would go to a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, to get an evaluation that way, to find out if you do have a brain disorder. And then follow the recommendations of that particular prescriber. And I hate to say it, but that's one of the most delicate relationships that you can develop, because you want to make sure that you're talking to somebody that you can have confidence in, making sure that they treat you with dignity and respect, that you're part of your treatment team, that you're not just talked down to. I'm the doctor, I know everything that's right and good for you. You want them to partner with you on your treatment. And when I was going to one psychiatrist in particular, I used to bring my husband with me to the visit, because your family members can see things that you can't see. And sometimes when you go to the doctor, you may forget or not be aware of some things that would really impact your treatment And if you're on a medication regime, it could impact that as well. So you want to get as much good, reliable information into your prescriber as you can, and be kind to yourself. Being undiagnosed, dealing with any other brain disorders can be quite traumatic, and having the opportunity to get into recovery, to find out, number one, that it's an illness that can be treated, that is not a sign that you are a weak person or a flawed individual. I felt so free when I found out there was a name for it, bipolar disorder. There was a drug that I could take that would help my brain function more properly. And it changed my life forever. And that's one of the reasons why we do the work that we do, and we tell our stories to people, to let people know, normalize this. We need to normalize the conversation around brain disorders of all kinds. There's so much negativity that's associated with it, and that's one of the reasons why people fear coming into the light. But Cheryl and I, we do our work because we've seen miracles happen almost right before our eyes. People get hope. They feel that they can live a good quality of life. I've been part of this program the whole 17 years that it's been in existence, and I live an amazing life. So we just want to encourage you, if you're struggling with PTSD or any of the brain disorders, not to be ashamed, but seek out somebody that can help you, and you will, like Mel said, you wish you had done it sooner.
One last word, if there's time, is patience. When we don't feel well, what we want is to feel better, and we want to feel better immediately. It sometimes takes a while to find the right treatment, the right person, the right medication. If you didn't get here overnight, you're not going to feel brand new tomorrow. So patience is a virtue. Just because you don't feel better in a day doesn't mean it's not working, doesn't mean you're not making progress. So the first step is to start with that physical exam, like she said, seek help, but be patient, participate in the process.
I'd like to piggyback on that and mention that, there are all sorts of people in our world, right? And so if you reach out and you start working with one person, a therapist or a doctor, and you don't feel like they're listening to you, or you don't feel like you're going to have a good therapeutic relationship with them, don't judge that all therapeutic relationships are going to be the same way. Look at different people that you can meet with, because you're going to connect with a different therapist or a different doctor differently than perhaps that first person. So don't give up with just one provider. If you don't connect, if you don't feel like you're being heard, go to a different person on the list, because you want to make sure that you're picking someone that you're going to be able to work with well, and that you feel understood and supported by.
And I would like to piggyback off of that. With everything she said, yes, keep finding therapists. The other thing is, don't ever be afraid to go back to therapy. I've gone back multiple times, and just when I thought my recovery process was doing great, the pandemic hit. And I just was triggered in ways I never thought of. And it was at that time that I sought out a somatic experience practitioner, and they work with people when they've had complex PTSD. It gets stored in the body. So it's a therapist, but they're also trained in helping you recognize the symptoms in your body. So there's all kinds of other types of therapies out there. And don't give up and keep searching.
Okay, I want to thank all four of our panelists today. It's been an absolute wonderful hour. And I want to thank our guests today, our attendees. I hope this has been a very meaningful hour for you on your screen there. And I hope for our veterans community, you've taken a picture of it, because it is PTSD VA resources. I encourage you to take a picture of that so you've got some contact there. As a veteran myself, I find that the PTSD coverage through the VA is just phenomenal. I encourage you to reach out to that. And by all means, we thank everyone for being here today. And we certainly have talked about PTS today. Thank you and have a wonderful day.